Well, folks,
Vishnu, you can start.
welcome to another session of Globespan 24/7. Today, we are privileged to have a very important guest, no other than Senator James Sanders, who has a very important portfolio, which we would like to bring to the attention of our guests, which is that he's the chairman of the Banking Committee. With that, I will also like to take the opportunity of introducing Ricardi briefly, but he will say much more of himself. Ricardi is the Deputy Director of the Queen's Economic Development Corporation, and Ricardi is actually a very key developer for the South Queens, especially the Richmond Hill community. So he has done quite a lot of work, and he will continue to bring more information about where things are. And briefly speaking, Rohan Narine, he's actually a senior liaison for the mayor's office, and he has actually done well to bring a lot of good graces of the mayor's office to our community. And of course, we have our advocate, community advocate, Albert Baldeo, who has been advocating to the community for many decades. And Albert, we will also give you a chance to give a little bit of yourself. With that, I would like to take the opportunity to ask the senator to give us an update as to where we are with COVID 19 here in New York State.
Well, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you to all of your fellow panelists. That I've been working with them for many years, and incredible servants, all of them. Um, so we are in the midst of a pandemic. Amazing. The last time the world had a pandemic like this was back in 1918, 102 years ago, and it took out 500,000 people, died to that throughout the world. Now, with that being said, we find ourselves in it, and as luck, Southeast Queens is a hot spot of the pandemic. So I'm urging everybody to really obey the social distance, to wear a mask when you go out, to do all of those things, to take this one seriously, my friend. I should at least tell you that my prayers and condolences go to any and all families that have been caught up in this. You have my prayers and condolences. Your leaders are fighting right now to get more testing sites. Um, there's something wrong with these communities of color being the ones that have the most people getting hit with this, and yet the fewest testing sites are being put in these communities. There's something wrong with that. And the person who has the prime responsibility is the governor. And I concede that I have probably made myself persona non grata in that office because I work for you. Means that I don't care what they say, they better put some testing sites in our community. And I'm just going to keep fighting that. Um, Now, these numbers that they give us are not accurate because they're not including the people who passed away at their homes, nor are they including the people who pass away who are homeless, and probably not the people who pass away in the nursing center. So you're probably double that amount of people. Now, I am happy to say that both the mayor that Rohan is going to speak about, no doubt, and the governor are starting to comply. They're starting to put testing centers in our community, and they're not enough. And there was a class problem with the testing centers because you had to own a car. So anybody who didn't own a car couldn't drive in and get a test, couldn't walk in and get a test. Not all of us are fortunate enough or want to own a car. So I've been spending my days fighting, my friend. And if that's not enough, I'm chair of banking, and we have just gone through something called the personal payroll protection, where I've been trying to get money for our businesses. They closed that yesterday, and our businesses, by and large, were not in the loop. So I have been fighting nonstop. Now, for more information, not to take away from these other great speakers, and I'll deal with any question, of course, that you have. For more information, my Facebook page is James Sanders Jr., and you can get more of this on that page, so as not to take away from such illustrious fellow speakers. But I'll take any question you have.
Well, Senator, I just want to bring some information up to the general audience. The New York City has established a COVID hotline, and that number is 888-364-3065. That COVID hotline number, you will be able to call and identify what is your concern, whether you're exposed to the virus, and it also asks you to give symptoms. But when you do that, the state then calls you and make an appointment for you to go to some of the sites that you helped us to put together. And that one in our community is the Aqueduct Racetrack. However, as you rightly pointed out, we need to have a car. So I have been carrying a lot of my seniors almost 3 times a day to the site.
It is sad that you have to do that, sir. Please be careful and make sure that you have gloves, mask, and everything, because we can't afford to lose you.
Thank you.
I look forward to the day that I can figure out how to get gloves and masks so I can give them away. I've seen way too many people walking around not taking this thing seriously. My friends, you're killing yourselves, and if it doesn't kill you, you're killing your families. Don't do this stuff, especially now that the governor has said that we will be on deep freeze. We're in quarantine until the 15th of May. Now, let me alert you, and then I'll be quiet, that these viruses usually come in 2 phases. Phase 1 back in 1918 of the Spanish flu took a lot of people out, but the second phase killed more people. Our second phase is expected at the end of the summer and into winter. So we really have to make some life changes to save your life.
Well, I just wanted to comment a little bit, Vishnu. There's lots of employers in our community, a lot of them who have cashiers and housekeepers, domestics, clerks, and so forth, who I think should have the responsibility and the duty, as they make a very good living. Some of them have actually increased their prices during this time, and they should at least provide some sort of transportation, and at a minimum, mandatory provision of face masks and personal protection equipment, the PPEs. It should be on them, because these are people who've been working a long time, been helping them to get the bottom line. They're still open, and they're being forced to work, so to speak, not only because they are economically dependent on that salary, but they are also at risk. For example, in the supermarkets here in Richmond Hill and Ozone Park, I've seen a lot of young people, Senator, young folks who want to graduate from college and want that little stipend to help them through. And, you know, they're just being abused, and the shopkeepers and so forth, they don't even help them to get the PPE and transportation to be tested.
As usual, Brother Baldeo, you are right again that, we have to remember if we've been blessed to be wealthy, that it's an obligation to community, and especially the young people. If you've been blessed, then why don't you be a blessing? Why don't you turn around and make sure that these people don't get poisoned themselves or poison their families? I agree with you.
Put one in the middle.
Well, having said that, we will also like to take the opportunity to ask the Senator what plans that the Senate have with the governor to be able to make our life a little more comfortable, and what programs you may want to share with us that is in the pipeline.
Well, as you know well, Brother Mahadeo, I am the chair of banking, and I've been spending my time with these programs that are supposed to be used to ensure that employers can keep their employees hired. We have found that in the first go round, the majority of it went to the big guys, and to the folk on Liberty Avenue and other places have not really benefited, sir. I was speaking with the congressman this very afternoon about how we need to do a stimulus where we carve out monies for those very companies right on Richmond, right in Richmond Hill, on Liberty Boulevard and 101 and other streets, where we ensure that our small businesses stay afloat. We've come too long in Richmond Hill. Ricardi can tell you, and other people can tell you. Brother Baldeo knows how Liberty Avenue was years ago. Rohan knows that we don't want to go.
Ricardi,
we need to go forward, and that means that we need money set aside for our community businesses that we can keep this going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our community businesses are not familiar with whatever stimulus programs they are. And the senator indicated about the PPP. Maybe you can elaborate more about the PPP and tell people in plain English what can be done.
Well, the sad truth, nothing on that issue. The personal payroll protection plan was over as of 11 o'clock yesterday afternoon. All of the money that was put in was taken out. I would argue the majority by giant corporations and who had the trained people who could sit down and fill out these applications. They had relationship with the major banks. The big guys took the money. We have to have another one of these, but we have to tailor it like we're dealing with Liberty Avenue.
Ricardi, and you want to tell us some of the programs that you are actually managing through QEEDC in terms of the small businesses?
Sure, Vishnu. Definitely, as the senator said, the Paycheck Protection Plan was one of those programs that, was part of the stimulus package, along with the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL program. And those were pretty much the two major programs on the federal level that we've been working on to try to get some of our local businesses, especially our small retail storefronts and so on, to take advantage of. They are, but in terms of the details of the programs, the PPP program was primarily meant to help small businesses to keep employees on payroll. It was meant to, if layoffs were made, it could help them to bring back some of their employees. If they're facing layoffs, it was supposed to help them keep their employees at a stable wage. So we were able to, we did plenty of outreach, and I know definitely Senator Sanders' office have done plenty of outreach and even trainings and webinars and so on, where we try to get as many of our local businesses to participate in the program. There were some challenges in that. Because the demand was so high, many of the banks were overwhelmed and there also some put out some priorities in place where they will cater only to particular businesses that have certain type of accounts and so on and so on. Some of the small businesses don't have accounts with some of the bigger banks, and or they don't have certain type of borrowing history per se with those bigger banks where they were not prioritized for some of these programs. So that was definitely one of the challenges. Also, too, the one of the issues that we understood came about was the fact that these programs require documentation, and you're able to, some of our small businesses have some challenges in terms of properly keeping records on a day-to-day basis year round. So while some of them may have been prime, many of them were prime candidates for this program. Some of them may not have a payroll record to document, their need, or maybe revenue and expense records for the last several months. That help them get those loans. But we did do trainings and webinars. We did some outreach to them. We were able to help some applications get in. Right now, we are still waiting on the results. There's plenty of people that were able to get to apply for these programs, and but right now we have not seen results yet in terms of who actually received money. So we're still waiting to see how that turns around. We're definitely hoping that there's Congress can come together and really put together some kind of plan and funding pool to expand this program and really try to target more to the small businesses. By definition, from the federal level and the SBA level, a small business is under 500 employees. To us, a small business is under 20 employees. It's though they're defined. They define the sort of like the guidelines. And like Senator said, there are some larger companies that were able to tap into limited funds of pools. So some $350 billion sounds like a lot of money, but within a couple of weeks, I think more than 1 million applications were actually approved for this loan. So that money went by fast. And we really need to look at other options where we can really cater this kind of programs to businesses that are really maybe 50 and under, but it's really businesses that are on our retail corridor, some of the home-based businesses. We have plenty of people that were also eligible for the program that were not even aware that they can actually get some of these resources because they didn't work for a company and they were sort of like either independent contractors or freelancers. So definitely more education needs to be done, more outreach needs to be done, and QEEDC will definitely working with our partners and government and the community to help continue to connect our underserved populations to these resources.
Well, I must take the opportunity also of asking Rohan Narine, who is representing the mayor office, in terms of what programs they're putting in place, because I'm aware of the mayor doing daily briefings on Twitter, among other things. I have been tracking that myself, but Rohan, this is an opportunity to tell us where things are and what you can share with us at this level.
Sure. First of all, Vishnu, thank you very much for this opportunity as well to Senator Sanders. Pleasure to be amongst your company. Mr. Baldeo, also a pleasure, a longtime community activist, and Ricardi, longtime OC. I think the last time we met was at Anil's Roti Shop for soup. So it's very good to be
It was great.
all of you again. So I want to be very careful with my words here. I am a liaison to the mayor, and so every word I say is as if the mayor is saying it. And with that said, there are 44 mayoral agencies. We have been working day and night to take in any and all requests from any New Yorker in the city. And so I just wanted to read off some data, and so I'll just do 3 quick things. One are the numbers of deaths in New York by borough. 2, wanted to run everyone past the daily presser. As Mr. Mahadeo mentioned, the mayor does do a daily presser. And then 3, some information and some resources that you can go to if you need assistance for anything. So I just want to run through the numbers very quickly by borough. In the Bronx, we're looking at a total. So Senator Sanders mentioned something very interesting, was that the numbers are undercounted. Where those numbers come from is either two directions. One, from the numbers reported from the Department of Health website, or directors give the city the numbers that we publish to our website. And sometimes those numbers may be different. There's also, the internet. There's Google, and you can even Google right now. I did it myself. Number of deaths in New York City, and it looks like, according to Google, there's 14,636 deaths in New York City right now. And the PDF that's released every day from the city, I am reading from the numbers from April 16th, both confirmed and unconfirmed together, looks like 12,199 deaths. So hearing what Senator Sanders says, right now Google has about 14,600. New York City's confirmed is 12,199. So there is some discrepancy. We do admit, as Senator Sanders said, there are those who have passed are still at home. There are those who are currently in a makeshift morgue. Those numbers may have not been counted yet either. So the city, we are working as fast as possible. We know that not only are hospitals overworked, but funeral homes and funeral directors are overworked. And so we are doing constant, we update, I think, twice a day, one around 2:30 p.m., and then we do a final report at around 7:30 that shows what the final numbers are for that day, every day, 7 days a week. With that said, I definitely want to share with everyone the mayor's press release, which was released today. The title of that is Mayor Bill de Blasio expands testing to communities hardest hit by COVID-19. Again, something that both Mr. Mahadeo and Senator Sanders is pressing for, especially in not just the hardest hit communities, but communities of color. We're looking at for example, I live in Southeast Queens. And we're seeing some of the information being disseminated slower than other communities. We're seeing sometimes the response rate, say 311, we're hearing response times from 311 being faster, needing to be faster. And in some parts of the area, in some parts of New York, it's a little bit slow. So we get that as well. We're also hearing, in terms of what the response is from the mayor, what is the state response, what is the federal response, where there are hiccups in the supply chain, we are involved with that as well. We're trying to manufacture PPE directly in New York City for New Yorkers, and we found that is the best way. FDA approval nowadays, as everyone has heard, is a bit of a challenge. Any overseas PPE coming in from China or India has to go through a 2-week FDA approval process, which we don't have time for. So we are working directly with suppliers in New York City. Brooklyn Naval Yard is a very good starting point for where a lot of commercial space is being given out either at a very affordable rate or free to companies who need to produce PPE. And with that said, I definitely want to touch very quickly on some resources. So if you go to, I'm just going to say this very slowly for anyone listening, if you go to nyc.gov, that is a one-stop shop for a website. nyc.gov will link you to all 44 mayoral agencies. If you have a question about, for example, Mr. Mahadeo's mentioned senior care. We're looking at Mr. Baldeo mentioning about SBS. What are open to small businesses? You can go to nyc.gov, it'll take you a link there. Ricardi, Calixte, again, with small business help. And Senator Sanders has a host of constituents who have a host of issues. nyc.gov is a good starting point. Mr. Mahadeo also mentioned the COVID hotline. So I'll read that off again. 888-364-3065. That is an amazing tool. If you need instant help for texting, text COVID, C-O-V as in Victor, I as in Isaac, D as in David, COVID, to the number 692-692. And so when you text COVID to that number, you will get daily updates, sometimes more than once a day, about the mayor's new initiatives, where and what website you can go to for that. So in closing, I definitely want to stress, I am a liaison to the mayor. I must be available to take all constituent requests 24/7, 365. So I'll read out my number. I don't mind giving out my number because if my commissioner came back to me and said, Rohan, did you help your community? Did you take care of this person? And I said, they didn't call me. And if I never gave out my number, you know, I may not be employed, right? So I'll give out my number to you guys. It's 347.
Which are the numbers you give me, Rohan?
Yep, 347-421-3784. That's my cell number, 347-421-3784. So if anyone listening to this Skype call on Globespan, there's a very large reach overseas, persons of color here, Caribbeans, Caribbean Americans, Caribbeans living back home. If you need to get in touch with me to get in touch with a family member that you may have a concern about, you haven't heard from in a week, and you can't leave, and you really want to know how that family member is doing. You want to get resources to that family member. You have a business that needs assistance. Any reason whatsoever. You just need to call and vent.
Rohan, can you repeat that number, please, sir?
Yep, 347-421-3784.
Whilst we have a little break, I just want to bring some other information. The city has also put the Meals on Wheels program in place, and it works like a charm, in that you can call 311 and they will actually be able to deliver meals to you, especially if you are an elderly person or you are disabled. Senator Sanders' office does the same thing. You call Senator Sanders' office, and I'll take liberty of giving out the numbers, 718-523-3069. That number works like a charm because you can get your Meals on Wheels through that office also. Now, having said that, Albert, I know you have been advocating for a lot of services, and maybe you can tell us of some of the services that you would like to see more in our community.
But can I thank Mr. Baldeo first before you do that? I just wanted to thank Mr. Baldeo and Mr. Mahadeo for their advocacy. The reason why we're getting more testing facilities is because of people like this who have been pushing for their community, and it just doesn't fall from the sky, my friends. You're getting it because you have leaders like this. I'm taking my leave on you, but it's a joy. I will work with you again, Mr. Narine. Ricardi, it's always a pleasure. And as you saw, Vishnu has my number.
Senator, I just want to ask you one bit.
Sure, sir.
Senator, I just want to ask you indulgence for 30 seconds more. Could you give us a statement on the Census 2020 and its importance even during the COVID-19?
My friends, you're getting hit with some stuff. One of the reasons we don't have the hospitals that we need is because they have undercounted our communities. One of the reasons why we feel that we're not getting the medical help or perhaps the police help or the fire or any of these things, because much of this is dependent on how many people live in these communities and how many people are taking the census. If ever there was a time when we need to ensure that we take the census, we have seen what happens when they shut down the healthcare in our community, creating medical deserts. So when a pandemic comes, we get wiped out. We need to do something about that. And don't forget to vote June the 23rd. You have an election coming up and a presidential election. This is not the time nor the place to go into that, but I am telling you, don't sleep on the census or on your vote. They're both related and they both are our power. Thank you very much to all of you. I look forward to working with you. Vishnu has my number on speed dial as you have seen.
Well, thank you, Senator, and it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you
Well,
very much, Senator. Please continue to fight for the small businesses on Liberty Avenue, sir.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
And Albert, as I was saying, as an advocate, could you tell us a little more of what you feel more that we should be asking for?
Well, I was wondering, but I just raised that point with the small businesses with the senator, so I know he's going to work on it. I'm going to ask Congressman Meeks on his weekly talk show on Tuesday as to about the federal funding, because as you know, the federal government is the financial strength of this country, and hence they can't forget us at these times and help small businesses by filtering money to agencies like yourself, the Richmond Economic Development Corporation, and also to Richard Calixte's Queens Economic Development Corporation. All of these businesses or all of these services should be empowered to pass on such help. So I'm looking forward to getting more financial help in our community. Also, there are other resources such as the unemployment fund and a funeral fund, because a lot of people in our community do not have the means, Vishnu, when they die and die quite suddenly and all alone, whether in nursing homes or wherever. As you know, we are very invisible and unseen. Hardly people think about our community in the government landscape. And hence, if there is some kind of registry that's being kept, Rohan, whereby we can go, whether the state has that or the city, in terms of finding out who some of the people who have died, because I did get some calls like that, how they can locate like someone who's died, especially if that person was homeless or in a shelter or on the streets. They don't even know what happened to loved ones, whether they are buried in an unmarked grave in Hart Island or wherever. At least they would want to know where their relatives, however poor they have been, however invisible, where they are, So that's what we can start up with that with Rohan.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you offline about that.
Having said that, go ahead, Rohan.
Yeah, I can follow up with you offline. What I can say about that, this is one of the most somber and sad and trying and challenging and depressing times when a family member finds out that their loved one is admitted to the hospital and they can no longer have contact with that individual. Just imagine what that is like. There's a New York Times article published earlier in the week, I think, or last week, about a physician, a Indian physician out in Valley Stream, who tested positive, went to be admitted, and I think in a matter of a week, she was no longer, and her family didn't have a lot of answers to those questions. And she was a physician. She was an ER physician in the ICU. And she had a choice. She could have stayed home, but she sacrificed herself to help New Yorkers. And we are seeing that more and more every day. So, in addition to following up, Mr. Baldeo, with me about that type of information, if you need personal information from constituents who want to just find their loved ones, please let me know. And for anything else relating to that, we have access to all the agencies necessary, and you can follow up with me. And if there's anyone else listening as well, anyone else is listening and they need answers to questions about loved ones who may be infected or unfortunately may have passed and has trouble communicating with the hospital or the funeral director, again, 347-421-3784, 347-421-3784. You can call me or text me.
Well, I must take this opportunity of also let's move to a topic that is also very important for our well-being, and that is Census 2020. As is right now, there have been many conversations with Census, but somehow our community is not getting engaged. And I'll put the onus on Rohan to tell us in terms of some initiatives from the mayor office, because as is right now, the Richmond Hill community is actually what you say have about 25% being counted. And it is unfortunate that our numbers are that low.
Sure,
We
yeah.
actually have to be able to increase our numbers because the initial response has been dismal in Richmond Hill and South Ozone Park. And we need to be able to have advocacies and advocates from within the community. So, Rohan, we know we're putting you in the deep end, but I know the mayor has a task force for the census. Could you tell us
Sure.
more about it, sir?
Um, I get put in the deep end at least 5 times a day, so don't you worry about that. That's okay. Uh, right now, in terms of Queens, I can pretty much speak strongly to Queens in terms of census. They're looking at a total of a 39% response rate. And you want to keep in mind something. You are correct, Mr. Mahadeo. There is very, very low reporting right now coming out of Queens. And so there are some parts of Queens that are higher. And then you're looking at areas like Richmond Hill, has a very low count. You're looking at the lowest, which is Elmhurst. I think Elmhurst has a 22% count rate. And so when you kind of aggregate that total, you're aggregating somewhere around 38 to 39, which I think is based on Census 2010 numbers. You want to get up. The highest reporting area in Census 2010 was Harlem. They had an 80% response rate. So almost, and you can see where Harlem is. But some of the strategies that the mayor's office is taking is we formed an entire separate agency called NYC Census 2020 that's run by Commissioner Julie Menon, and that is primarily built out to engage in neighborhood organizing count committees, or NOCCs. The acronym is knock. So we try to play on the word knock here. And how that works is it's broken down borough by borough. There's something called a Hester Street map. And we're working with Hester Street on this. This is a amazing tool that you can click on it digitally and you get responses per borough every day delivered to us from U.S. Census completion rates. And so this is where I get my numbers from every day. And in terms of that, so Vishnu, you wanted to know some specific steps that we're taking to get the count up. And so what we are choosing to do very soon, it's an internal discussion at the moment, we're hoping to roll it out, are a few things. And this is, thinking outside the box here. We are trying to work with local DJs. And so DJs are on Facebook Live. They have access to strong viewership. They have the ability to get on a microphone, not only play music, but do a little bit of feedback, some emceeing. And we're trying to, quote unquote, do a little trainer series with DJs and tell DJs why it's important to get involved in at least census marketing, census awareness, and say that to your audience while you're playing music. Two, some community-based organizations are doing different contests. For example, there's one community-based organization that's doing like a coloring contest, and that that page is something from the Hindu faith, but it's census related. So there may be like a river or a place in India that's related to Hinduism, but within that there's some words that says complete the census, and you'd have to color that in, and it creates a impression in your mind, in your subconscious, that you need to complete the census. Three, what we're hoping to do is reach out to pundits, to imams, to priests, to rabbis, all over New York, specifically in this case because I deal with the South Asian and Indo-Caribbean populations for my job duties, reaching out to the imams and the pundits that have a very strong viewership on Sunday, engage them in, again, a train the trainer series, teach the pundits, teach the imams what the importance of the census is, such that during their sermons, they pause, they take a break, and they spend 5 minutes explaining the importance of the census, and then they go back to their sermon. And if we could have the faith leaders doing this in their respective communities of their specific faiths, I have a very good hunch that you will start to see the numbers go up, down from the low 30s into the 40s and so forth as time goes on. I'll close with saying this: COVID-19 has crushed communities, especially in Queens, especially in Southeast Queens. And that's why we're seeing some of the low numbers right now. We're hoping that as this subsides, as we go back to a sense of normalcy, that we could eventually start to see these numbers increase.
Well, Ricardi, I would like to take the opportunity also of asking you, because I know Queen's Economic Development Corp has actually played a major role with some of the key players of the census. What is it that your organization is doing to advocate greater participation?
Sure. Obviously, Vishnu, our focus is definitely always, with the entrepreneur and the small businesses, but we also take every opportunity that we can to actually help promote and engage people with the census participation. We always are sharing information at our, when we do some type of outreach or some kind of presentation, we share information. We have links on our website. We always encourage everybody during this time to check our website to kind of keep up with what's going on. Our website is Queens, like the borough Queens, ny.org. And we have links on that homepage, for census and also, things, programs that may be happening with the COVID situation. We encourage everyone to sign up for our e-blast. We are constantly sharing information throughout the week when things come about to let people know what's available. So we're not because our mission is to primarily focus on businesses and entrepreneurs. We don't directly do wide scale census promotion, but whenever we get a chance to work with our partners and get the word out, we definitely encourage that. And we get we explain to people what the value of census is, including the business owners and the residents in these communities. It's really something that can't be overstated. The census really plays a vital role on how our communities grow, receive resources, and it is definitely something that I think with what's going on now, it's really a wake-up call how important it is that we need to get resources to our neighborhoods, and the census and voting is really the two key ways of getting that done.
Vishnu, that's a very important point.
It is, because Albert, I would like to ask of you, because you have been doing some advocacy for the census, going back in 2000 and now 2010, and obviously I'm hoping that you can be involved in 2020. So shed some light in terms of some of the advocacies that you have done or we have worked together on.
Oh, definitely. And I know that in 2010 you played a very important role. I remember Lester Farthing and Chuck Mohan, and a lot of other folks who really did a lot of work there. And we have to build on that basis now. And since we have the opportunity, we will have to reach out. And I like that connection that Richard made between what we're suffering now, the lack of resources, and the fact that we are not being counted and we haven't made our presence felt. Because as we know, resources flow directly into our community based on the numbers. America is a data-driven country, and you don't get unless you talk up or unless you put your name down, and they work with statistics. But since we have this time on now, I wanted to give a number out to our viewers to fill it up by phone. That's the best and quickest way. You don't have to touch the paper if you feel it has a virus in it. You don't have to have a computer, but everybody has a phone, whether it's a hardline phone or the cell phone, and you can do it for the entire family. So folks out there listening to this program, call 844-330-2020. That's 844-330-2020. That's an automatic line. As soon as you call that, you get everything done one shop, count the entire family, put it through. Also, you can also do it online, as you know, Census 2020. But coming back to what you were asking about, I believe that it's a wake-up call. It's a very grim reminder that how communities can be wiped out. And the senator talked about how Richmond Hill was a ghost town going back into the 70s and 80s. And Richard's father would know of this, and all the older community activists. What happened, how we transformed this community from a ghost town into the vibrant community it is now. And therefore, we've gotten a stake by our blood, sweat, and tears on people like yourself who are from the economic development, Vishnu, and have worked in census and have worked in small businesses to uplift them and to make them survive and give them oxygen to breathe, that we have to maintain what we have. Because where are we going to go? We came from India to Guyana to the United States, the pillar to post syndrome, Ricardo. Where are we going to go next? we have to stay right here and fight for a proper share because we have been paying taxes uplift in this community. We've been helping people get into
Well,
office, Vishnu. And they've
well,
got to come back and
actually,
help.
I would like to bring something else into the program, and that we have to be also be able to claim your heritage. In that, the census has a very important category called race,
Mhm.
and in that race, you identify your ethnicity. Now, I will only speak on behalf of the Indo Caribbean on this because I'm not an expert in any other ethnicity. In the Indo Caribbean psyche, you take the word Indian, and in the others, which is the box below it, you put Indo Caribbean. We want to make sure that everyone have a common language, Indo Caribbean, not Indo Guyanese, Indo Trinidadian. We want to have a commonality, and that is something I want to advocate very strongly. Rohan, maybe you can tell us a little bit of what you see from within your experience in the community as a liaison.
Sure, sure. And it's ironic you mentioned it. That is one of the exact challenges that we faced back in Census 2010 that we're actually facing right now at Census 2020. There are some who live in basements. This is a good hypothetical scenario. You live in a basement, you're undocumented, you have to fill out the census, and you're from the Caribbean, and you're of Indian or Afro origin. What do you do? And we're seeing that they just go like this. They just fold right up and they give in. They don't fill out that form. And so we are having some challenges with, say, in a three-family home, that dweller, sub-dweller apartments. How does that person receive awareness about how to fill out the census? Does that person trust government? That's another story. As we all know, there was supposed to be a citizenship question that never made it to the form, but it was planted in the minds of immigrants, and that may take some convincing, some persuasion. But what I would say, since Census 2010 to Census 2020, I think the term Indo-Caribbean has come a long way. We are seeing more and more Indo-Caribbeans and Afro-Caribbeans. In this case, I'll just speak to the phrase Indo-Caribbean, has really made its way, and I can only again speak to New York, has made its way in New York. And so I would probably advocate as well in terms, when you see that line, you definitely want to put in that line, although we don't have a line yet. And technically, we are South Asian, we are Indian, but we are from a specific part in the world that does identify us, and we are Caribbean. And if you're from the motherland of India, then you would be an Indo-Caribbean. And so to Vishnu, I know you were fighting for that very hard in 2010. And right now, keep on fighting that fight. Let people know that I think, I'm not going to speak on behalf of the mayor here. I'll speak on behalf of Rohan, that you should definitely fill in for that line, Indo-Caribbean.
And
Well, Ricardi, no, you also have some input on that because Ricardi also does a lot of work in many communities. And Ricardi, maybe you can shed some light on that in terms of how you personally address yourself in that census.
Sure. Well, I definitely want to address what Rohan just said because it's like we are living it directly in terms of some of our work. QEDC, I have been doing one of the things that we do is we do data analysis. We study demographics and populations and so on, and we are actually currently are in the process of conducting a study in Richmond Hill right now. And honestly, to tell the truth, based on the past census data that we have to use and the community surveys that we have to use on paper, it does not reflect of what we know of Richmond Hill to be. We know how Liberty Avenue looks. We know how 101 looks. We know how the general area of South Richmond Hill looks. But if you look on a census, on a demographic data sheet, based on the data that we can use, we can't make up our own categories. We have to go by that official data that is published. It does not show that there is a huge Guyanese or Indo-Caribbean population at all in Richmond Hill. it's general, Black, Asian, Hispanic, and so on, and it does not reflect really what you see in the community. So definitely a good point to what you said, and how we have to sort of make these data collection processes more consistent and more specific in terms of identifying a community. Vishnu, can you repeat your question? I just wanted to definitely address Rohan's point quickly. What was your question, Vishnu?
Well, my question was, well, whilst we from the Indo-Caribbean community are looking for specificity to identify ourselves, that same dilemma is faced with the Black community also, because Haiti, they cannot be seen as African American. How do you address that?
Sure, correct. Just as Rohan mentioned earlier, I myself, I identify as Afro-Caribbean, as somebody of a native of Haiti. I consider myself to be Afro-Caribbean, and so, like you said, similar situation in terms of census data. Communities will reflect African American. Sometimes you may see some data that breaks it down by continent and so on, but never sort of like a specific, tie, a connection between kind of like the motherland and where somebody was born and raised and so on, and where they migrated to. There's no link that creates that identity. So it's a challenging in multiple communities, but primarily, Afro Caribbean and the Caribbean. We don't fit neatly in just a general black white identity that some people may actually identify with.
And Vishnu, it's a terrible shame. I just want to bring this point that Ricardi is making, that this is the province of Little Guyana. And we need to make a big stamp and stamp it back and send it back to them so they know. Because they know the obvious is that we're the second largest group in New York City. We have the numbers. We have made the contributions. We're the backbone of the economy in Queens. And yet they fail to recognize that Richmond Hill is like Little Guyana, so to speak. And we don't have the recognition that we deserve politically, economically, and socially. And that's a crying shame, because that's unconstitutional and is against the whole Constitution and everything else, against the numbers that we are not being recognized for who we are, but build this community and paid us for such a long time. And that's a crying shame indeed. So they should have a big stamp made in Little Guyana, stamped on all these forms and sent back to them so they can be reminded of the fact that Richmond Hill and Ozone Park and South Ozone Park is indeed the land of Little Guyana, or Region 10, Region 11, as they say in Guyana, because it's the largest conglomerate of diaspora and it demands recognition. And yet we don't have a single representative at city, state, or federal level. And I'm glad folks like Rohan have such influence, and I know that Rohan will take his influence to the mayor without holding back, because that's the only way this playing field can be leveled, that those who have the ear of the governor and the mayors must press for resources, must press for that. You and I have been in the fields fighting for these things, and it's good that we have people in positions who can also access resources for our community. So Rohan, my brother, more power to you. Make sure you do that for us. I thank you for what you've been doing, and continue to fight for us.
Sure, I have two things. I have an 8:30 call to jump on. This is through the Jackson Heights community. They're being hit very hard, and so there's an 8:30 call I need to be on. But I'll say this: when I started this job, I was given a privilege, and that is I was given a seat at the table. And when I sat at this table, I was the only person there who looked like me. And there's 25 staff at the community affairs unit. And I'm the only one that looks like me there. And when these meetings go on, there's a Monday morning meeting with our commissioner, and it only lasts 30 minutes. And so you have 30 minutes for 25 people to explain and fight for their case, for their catchment area, for their culture, for their people. And if you don't speak up and say something, only a hungry mouth gets fed. And when I first started, I said, gosh, what do I say? How do I fight? And then I realized why I was hired: to open my mouth, to speak words that make sense, and keep on speaking those words that make sense until something happens. Correct. And there needs to be more of us, because as you know, in this country, we are fighting not just the vaccination war, we're fighting a political war. And as my father-in-law says, I don't know if he's listening, but my father-in-law says, at the end of the day, I'm going off the record here. At the end of the day, it all comes down to how you look.
Exactly. Ramesh Kilawan, he's a good man. He's a good fighter.
You can say whatever you want. You can say this country is based on equality and fairness and, X, Y, Z. But if you don't fight for the people that look like you and the people that identify with you, you're fighting a losing battle. You're just a salmon swimming upstream. And so I had to learn that very quickly. I thank you for putting your trust in me and your faith in me. I won't let you down. I worked so hard. I lost all my hair. So, now I just gotta
bad jokes here.
Yep. So
now, having said that, Rohan, we want to say thank you very much for your participation. But before you go off, I just want to also bring something that is of importance that all of us indicated, and that is the situation in Guyana. I see Alberto put out the flag, and that signals
my flag's half past, Vishnu, because what we have is a situation where we can only sympathize with our motherland, that we are at half mast because we're in turmoil and we're in sympathy and we are in sorrow that democracy has been hijacked from Guyana. It is now 6 weeks, and up to today, we find these problems growing and growing. Now, what has happened, and I know we don't have much time, so I'll move very quickly, is that today, the chairman of the commission said, Claudette Singh, she is only going to have 10 seats. So this thing is going to prolong beyond April, the end of April. It's going to prolong on and on. Range is saying that he knows nothing of this lobbying firm that's being paid $72,000 and $40,000 a month, that he doesn't know anything about it, and yet the contract is in his name, and all of this hypocrisy and deceit is being put on the Guyanese people who are in third world status, don't have the resources, the coronavirus is hitting us, Venezuela is threatening to take our territory. We are still a poor country. We have the oil that can lift us up. That's the reason why all of us has left Guyana, Rohan, because and your parents and so on, because we can have a life there. So we can come here and we know that this is not a bed of roses we're in. And yet, since we can offer help to Guyana, we must stand up and be counted. So I'm going to call the Mike Pompeo again. I'm going to call him and tell him what's going on, because here's the thing. Claudette Singh needs to resign. Granger and Cabal needs to be indicted because they breached the Foreign Affairs Act. The registration of agents, I've read the law on that, and I've read what they have done. The fact that they have now come into America with these bogus contracts and saying they don't know about it, they come within the jurisdiction of the United States. So I'm calling on the Department of Justice, President Trump, Mike Pompeo, and all of these people in the Department of Justice to charge these people. They can extradite them and bring them because it has jurisdiction now that sent those documents to America.
Well,
have prolonged this farce of democracy there. And put distinction on because Granger playing this hypocritical game, we're not going to get any justice for the people in Guyana. People are dying every day. They're going to feel the upset of it. We will never get the oil, and we can't get back to the life that Guyanese deserve. And it's a shame. It's wrong. It's evil.
I just want, for information purposes, make some information be known that as of today, as Albert was alluding to, the chairwoman has indicated she will have up to 10. She didn't say necessarily 10, but up to 10 counting units. And it is not what you call the most practical thing. However, let's see how it pans out.
Rohan, because he's an official capacity, we understand, Rohan, that as a mayor's representative, he should not be involved in these discussions. So,
no,
thanks, Rohan. I understand, sir, that was not involving you.
Oh, no, I would say I just have another call to jump on. But
yes, you have to go around, but thank you again for your time.
Okay, Region 4. All right, guys, see ya.
Well, actually, we are Region 12 out here in the diaspora. So we have to be very mindful of that. Now, we also have a very important role to play in that we have skill sets that we bring. Take, for instance, a gentleman like Ricardi, with the economic development tools that he has learned here. Yes, he can implement major programs in that environment. So what we see happening here in in Guyana, it is because of the impasse or the crisis that has developed. It really has frustrated investment. We have major players who are looking to do economic development because, take for instance, Liberty Avenue, that we are all familiar with, does not have one bora or one pepper that comes from Guyana. In fact, no vegetable ever comes from Guyana now, and we need to work on that to be able to bring back those farmers so that they can use the diaspora to bring their products. So this is not so much of a political, it is more of an economic statement in terms of where we are going. And Ricardi, I'm pretty sure you may want to visit, go with me to visit Guyana.
I'm ready.
Well,
So, you know,
having said that,
Fly around again.
as a person of Haitian heritage, he's our brother, Vishnu. He's a brother in the Caribbean, and I've had a lot of Haitian friends. Some of my neighbors have told me, some have actually married the Guyanese family, and they very much have a stake in Guyana also, as it should be, and they want to see Guyana thrive. And you're right. What you talk about there is that all the brains here, like Ricardi's and all the other folks here who can help in oil, that when all these oil contracts are being given out to Exxon and expatriates who have sucked our blood during colonial times, we're going back to imperialism. As a matter of fact, our country's like an imperialist tooth right now, that we can't even count our own votes, and we got to get observers, and we got to get this, and everybody's saying the votes that were rigged and they're not fair, and yet they don't want to accept it. So if you really did win the election, why doesn't Granger say, well, let's count the votes? Why is he doing one thing, bringing CARICOM in, and then send him and said, I don't know about that. Why they left, I don't know. And today he's saying he didn't sign the contract. So this is a person who's a hypocrite and possibly a criminal in the way he's been acting, and his cabal are equally so. They should have all the Lawrence resign, and they should also have them out of office, because they have such a split. How are they going to run the country? And half of the people are saying, the leaders there, if you can call them leaders, because they're forced upon the people, they're in a legal regime, they're saying that, oh, we still have power here. They were voted out of office, and they're twice removed, they're twice illegal now, and then they lost the elections, and yet they're holding on to power. So this is like oppression on people. And it's not because I'm a Guyanese or I'm of a political party, but I want to see the Guyanese who knows how tough living outside can be when you have those kinds of richness thrust upon you by God's help and intervention, then use it. And Guyana has failed to do that. It's like throwing pearls, and we still have a divided country, and that must end. And we must unite and go forward and be a prosperous country. And all of us.
well, on that high note, I would like each of us here, because we are coming close to the end. I would like Albert to give a closing statement, a brief closing statement, so at least we could actually have this get a summary of where we are and what we have said so far today.
Sure. Well, of course, in these times, we've made some very good points, and your program has been very helpful with the census and also with voting and making sure you become citizens and vote. Don't be afraid of the census. ICE agents will not come to you. Law, it's kept secret. Nobody's going to come and harass you because you filled out the census form and come looking for you because you're undocumented. So forget about that. Make sure you do these things so we can have a more powerful voice and a visibility in America. It depends on numbers. We've also talked about the COVID virus, and we're going to try to get more resources. And we wanted to make, there's a testing site in Liberty Avenue, or like in the Aqueduct racetrack, that we can have a testing site there, because the Adabo Center in the Far Rockaway, and Adabo owes a lot to this community. He owes his position in office because of us helping him in the Democratic Party get power. So they must pay back and give us our testing sites and our resources and our compensation, and help small businesses and bring out money to us, because we've earned the right. We are not beggars, and we are not asking for handouts. We are asking for things we are entitled to by being vibrant and compliant American citizens and hardworking people from Guyana, Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, India, Bangladesh, and all over the place. And coming back to my final point, I believe this must happen. I think the Granger administration must resign. It is very clear that Mike Pompeo now has the evidence in the Department of Justice to extradite them and bring them to trial before American courts, because they have tampered with the Registration of Foreign Agents Act, which is illegal, and they have sent fraudulent documents to America, which gives America the venue and the jurisdiction to try them. and they have failed the Guyanese people. It is long. If you want to go back and be a good opposition for 4 years, go and fight and show where Jagdi or Irfan or whosoever is giving out contracts to their buddies or whatever they're doing, because none of these parties are perfect. So if you want to get back in office, you have to form a spirited opposition and look at what the next regime will be doing. And finally, I will close on this. Charity begins at home, brothers and sisters. If you cannot help yourself as Guyanese, if you can't come together and avoid this race card and stop this fighting, you are fighting for crumbs. You are fighting for nothing. The Exxon people and the expatriates and the American government and the British people are coming back to suck the juice out of the cane, and you'll be left with the husk, what you call couscous. So if you want couscous and you don't understand what goes on in America, they grind us in America. You don't come here and pick up jewels and pearls on the street. Vishnu all of us had to work 3-4 jobs and try to get back and do back our education and became us brilliant people from Guyana. So it's no bed of roses here, brothers and sisters, but you have to unite, you have to forgive each other, see each other as Guyanese, and the Grazier regime, and people like Valda Lawrence, who says you got to get a party card to get a job, and also now she's now the Minister of Health and determine who lives or who dies with the coronavirus. These are deceitful and evil people who must be removed from society. Fire them immediately. And Granger, you've got to resign. Bring that problem you have within your own party to an end. Or you can face indictment in the United States for all this fraud that's going on and for stealing and for treason. And in the DPP in Guyana is somehow so quiet, Vishnu, that she doesn't want to charge anybody. You bet the Department of State here and Justice will do their job. And I just wanted to give them Mike Pompeo's number because I spoke to his office just 2 days ago. And now we have our information. It's our duty to do that to Mike Pompeo. It's 202-647-4000. That's 202-647-4000. Mike Pompeo, the Department of U.S. Secretary of State. He will be
On that high note,
Trump. You can even email President Trump. You may not like President Trump, but President Trump has the antidote or the cure or the vaccine for that Guyana virus and democracy that's going on there.
Okay, Albert, on that high note, we would like to ask Ricardi to give us a closing statement.
Sure. Thank you, Vishnu. And again, definitely want to thank you for, bringing this together. People right now definitely are in need of information and communications. A lot of people right now are, shackled up in their homes, and these type of, platforms is really, to me, I think it does a lot for people emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. It just kind of help you to sort of, escape, kind of like this bondage that we are in right now in a way. But I definitely want to, reach out to the business community, let them know that these are definitely tough times. These are challenging, very challenging times that is going to require some changes and adaptations to how we do business. We are. We definitely want to let them know that Queens Economic Development Corp, we are still available to provide assistance. Anybody that needs help with a business issue, whether trying to figure out what kind of programs are available in terms of grants and loans, or just typical business counseling, how to increase my revenue with a business plan, development or marketing, just definitely reach out to us. We encouraging them to email us at info@queensny.org. Just send us an email, tell us what you need, and we'll try to follow up with you and give you the support that you need. Obviously, the economy is in a stalemate right now, but there are certain things we can be doing in the meantime while we try to recover from this pandemic. One of the things that we are trying to also encourage is businesses that are still in operation, maybe the restaurants that are doing food, takeout and delivery. Let us know if you are in operations. We have different platforms where we are promoting, inside Queens, it's places in Queens that people can still go to and do business with to pick up food or get deliveries. We definitely encourage you to let us know that you are still functioning so we can promote your business. We also have some long-term plans for Richmond Hill specifically in terms of this was already in process, in terms of studying the neighborhood and working with New York City government to bring in some resources to help develop Richmond Hill further. So we definitely encourage the stakeholders, the merchants to if when we're doing our outreach, we reach out to you, we walk into your store. We just here to help, try to understand and hear your concerns, so we can try to take this back and be your voice with some of the people that decide on what kind of resources come into Richmond Hill. So definitely support what we are doing. And I also want to definitely, this kind of touches on what Mr. Baldeo mentioned earlier. I also want to encourage the local business owners and the residents to, it's time to collaborate. We've experienced sometimes division while we're doing our work, and this is not something that is just an issue in Richmond Hill, but it definitely is something that does exist in Richmond Hill, and we are encouraging folks just to collaborate. Look at your business your business neighbor as a collaborator, not as a rival. Obviously, right now, if you are the only open on the block, it means nothing. You're not getting any business. Nobody else is walking that street. So you need everybody to be functioning well. When we all do well, it helps everybody. So definitely look at your neighbors as partners and collaborators to strengthen the community and community being a partner in that growth.
Well, folks, I must take this opportunity to thank Mr. Nohar Singh and Devin for what Globespan has really done here today. Globespan has given us the tool and the mechanism. And folks, I want to encourage you to support Mr. Singh because he's funding this all on his own. And today we were actually about to cancel the show, but he had to pay extra to get technical support to make this a reality. So I want to say wholeheartedly, Globespan is something that is very genuine, very legit. Let's work together to ensure its success. Having said that, I want to talk a little bit of the economic development that is due for Guyana. I had worked for 2 years with a former Foreign Affairs Minister, Greenwich, and the former U.S. ambassador to bring the FDA rep to Guyana so we can start the program of the phytosanitary recertification of Guyana. We have some business interests who are based at JFK that is already approved by the FDA and is Homeland Security certified are to Guyana. But because there is such a chaos and you can't even land in Guyana, all these investments are on hold. We want to bring fruits and vegetables. We want to get pineapple from Puerto Rico by the Seven Door Cocoa. We want to get Wiri pepper from the tobacco facility on the Linden Highway. We want to get Bora from Springlands. These are things that we need so that the diaspora can get these products back on the shelves of Liberty Avenue. So I want to advocate for us to advocate for a quick election decision, do what is right, make sure that the rule of law is observed, and make sure that this count is over. We cannot have this thing going on and on and on and on. We're making a fool of ourselves. And we need to make sure that the count is done. If you need help, I'm an election officer in the United States. I can help you to count. However, on a more serious note, we want to ensure that everyone gets an opportunity to be able to make their voice be heard and communicate to the people and players in Guyana that it is time that the counting must be stopped. We need to get it finished, get the results out, and let's form government because why? Exxon money is held in a foreign reserve in the United States, and that money is not coming to Guyana until the United States said this government is legitimate and is acceptable. We have to watch these bigger players. And in one of the things I want to say, whilst here in the United States, we have pantries, whilst we have unemployment, those resources are missing in Guyana. So I would like to ask our Minister of Health to start looking at social, well, I wouldn't say minister, but Mr. Vola Lawrence, to look at social programs that can help the people who are elderly, people who don't have the resources, to make sure that they have a daily bread. So that's where we're going with this. But in all fairness, gentlemen, I must say thank you very much for your involvement, and we want to take the opportunity also of profusely thanking Senator James Sanders, because he has a very busy schedule, and to take time out to tell us of the programs, because thanks to him, we have the aqueduct as our test, as a facility to coronavirus. And many people in Richmond Hill for the first time can go and get tested. So on a positive note, we want you to make sure you call that COVID number hot. With that, I must say thank you, Albert, for being part of the program.
I would be remiss if I did not say just one thing for Nohar. I have known Nohar for decades, and yourself in the Universal Airlines, and I wanted to compliment both of you for the work that you did and for the historical achievements in furthering the airline communications between Guyana, Canada, and so on, and Africa. One time you had
Africa.
So he has earned the respect and the historic right as a airline entrepreneur and one who has really pushed the airline traveling in this community. And I want to compliment Nohar for a job that was well done, and for being a pioneer and an expert, and one who has put us on the map, so to speak, in the air about that. And that was a great job that you guys did with Universal Airlines. And you yourself, as a poll supervisor, will know that when the polls close at 8 from our site here in Richmond Hill, you get the results by 10 o'clock that same night. And this is just like Guyana. We have the population in Richmond Hill like 50 or 60% of what Guyana has. So how come we can do it in America and we can't do it in Guyana? You know, so
well, they didn't accept
deadlines
me.
are approaching, and then
I was not accepted as an international observer. But in any case, I must say, gentlemen, thank you very much. On this high note, I want to say thank you for all of you for your participation, and Rohan Narine also for his involvement. And Ricardi, I must say thank you for doing this outreach, because Ricardi has been the backbone of the Guyanese community on Liberty Avenue for economic development. He has done many, many years with me in this community. Thank you, Ricardi.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your work.
Thanks for having me.